Hi, I'm Liina Laas, activist, investor, mother. I'm from Estonia, the country that has given the world more unicorns per capita than any other. But it's also the nation with the highest gender pay gap in Europe. Though everything has been improving over the years, women everywhere are still getting a rough deal. Lower salaries, less investment. On this show, I talk with powerful people, women and men, about diversity and equality. Getting an insight to their stories and exploring what a better deal for women looks like. Starting the conversation is important. When women do better, we all do better. Join us and let's discuss how to build a more inclusive world for everyone. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me again on an episode of The Better Deal. This is a show where we discuss issues on gender equality and diversity and how we can build a better world together. And I'm really happy to introduce to you Sandra Golbreich. She's the CEO of Baltic Sandbox and Business Angel School, the co-founder and founder. Welcome, Sandra. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to kind of get straight to it. So you are a big advocate of diversity. You've been pushing initiatives of women in tech and age tech, and you've also been involved with many startups of your own. And Sandra's a real change maker in the region. So I really wanted to share her story. So let's start with the Baltic Sandbox and Business Angel School. So could you tell us a bit more about how it all works? So you syndicate deals, you run an accelerator. So what brought you here and how did it all start?
Well, it actually starts as any startup starts, we wanted to change something in the system. So we saw a market opportunity. It was 2018 when we started with the accelerator. And previously, me and my partner, now we have 5 partners. At the beginning, it was only 2 of us. We figured that there are a lot of startups at the Baltic market, brilliant startups actually. And there are some investors as well. And there are some investors at the Western European markets, but somehow they don't get to each other, and the amount of deals is pretty low, and the startups are underfunded comparing to the Western European startups. So we started figuring out a way how can we bring those together. And at some point, we figured that one of the problem is that local startups are unable to explain to the investors what they're actually doing, how they're going to scale, to grow. And we decided to start this first acceleration program with the startups to help them to do it. And it wasn't only the program for the Baltic startups, because at this point I think we were actually the first accelerator at the Lithuanian market, or the second accelerator at the Lithuanian market. And a lot of those accelerators, they accepted only local startups. They didn't actually pay much attention to the startups who relocated from other countries. And starting from the nearest CIS countries like Belarus, for example, or Ukraine, up to completely different parts of the world, like Australia, for example. And thanks to our government, we had this opportunity to land the startups here with a startup visa. So we started the acceleration program where we had only 3, I guess, or 2 Lithuanian startups, and all the other startups came from all the other parts of the world. This is how the first one started. Then after several different acceleration programs, we noticed that the amount of the female founders in the program is dramatically low. I mean, if you take 10 startups, there would be probably 1 or 2 startups that are led by the women founders. And we try to figure out what's happening. Probably there are not enough startups like this in the market, probably something else. So in 2019, we launched our first Women in Tech program. And when we had our selection bootcamp, we had like 40 something amazing startups with amazing founders who were willing to pitch to the investors, who already had some products and everything. But when we finally selected 10 startups to participate in the program, startups started to refuse participating one after another. And we were looking for the cause, we were looking for the reason, and we figured that female founders have different life circumstances than, let's say, mixed teams or men founders. So basically, they are at some point they're looking after the kids, at some points they're looking after the senior parents, at some point they have families, and it's just uneasy for them to relocate. So we changed the program completely, and we built this first hybrid program where they had to be physically in Vilnius 1 week per month, and all the other time they could do it online. And it was a great success because this program was convenient for them. It was very much suitable for their needs. And we started figuring what else we can do to help the female founders to thrive, to push their products. And at some points, I think it was a demo day. At some points, we invited the investors, our usual investors community from different countries, Nordics, Baltics, Western Europe, to come and have a look at these founders and probably invest in someone. And it wasn't the usual response from the investors. The thing that we usually get, that they're, oh, okay, you have a new demo day, I'm in. They were like, oh, okay, those girls, probably they're having some social projects and stuff like this. And we were like, come on, what is the huge difference between the female founders and male founders? So we're having this demo day, and like first 2 rows, investors are sitting there waiting for the startup speech. And I'm giving my opening speech, and I'm coming out and I'm saying like, okay, so for now, I would like to run an experiment. Please close your eyes. And imagine the founder of your dream, the founder that you would immediately invest in. So what is the personality of this founder, founding team? Who are they? What do they do? How they kind of interact and everything. And now open your eyes. And those investors who pictured one women founder in the team or the team full of female founders, just raise your hands. 0 hands. And I said, like, look, this is exactly the problem of the funding for the female founders. It's not that their products are worse. It's not that they're less capable or something. It's just a bias in your head when you're picturing your ideal founder. You never picture a woman.
Yeah, it's really sad. I've also experienced that. I've spoken to over 100 women founders and investors in the last year, and everyone has a story like this. And the thing is also that even women are biased. So probably if I close my eyes now and think of an investor, I think of a man. So things are changing a bit in society. Like, for example, I'm happy that in Estonia now the president and prime minister are women, but she also gets the same questions. Oh, who's looking after your kids? How's it like to be a female prime minister? And it's like, why? Yeah, I think, there's probably a really long way to go, but it's kind of shocking. I wasn't expecting that it was the biases were so strong when I started raising my fund that invests in women. The investors that I have to get money from, they are confused, like, oh, so what are these women doing? Is it shoes? Is it baby clothes? It's like, no, it's tech. We're investing in tech that, the founders have to be happen to be women. And yeah.
And moreover, I can tell that investing in women, in the women founders, makes a lot of economical sense, actually, because according to some latest studies, the startup who have diverse founding teams or female founder teams, they perform up to 23% better in terms of return on investment rather than the startups that consist of men only. And this is happening on the market where the female founders get only 1% of funding, comparing that all the funding that goes to all the other startups. And we had this panel recently in Baltic Sandbox with the investors, like male investors and female investors, discussing the startups. They were angel investors. And I raised this question about, okay, so female founders, what's wrong with them? Why don't you invest? And there was this investor from Czech Republic, and he said, well, the problem is that we want our founders to be focused on their priorities, to be focused on their startups. And women, at some point, they might have different priorities, like kids, like caring about their families, parents, and everything. This is why probably we're kind of afraid of investing in them and something. But think about this. So we know some successful women founders who have families, kids, parents, dogs, husbands, whatever. So can you imagine how much more efficient are the female founders in terms of time management and task management when you're juggling it all together? I mean, you're having kids, you're having parents, you're having dogs, you're having your startup, and you do all this stuff all together. So you should be very efficient to do it successfully. And this is what is actually happening.
Absolutely. There was something I remembered, a quote, I think it might have been Margaret Thatcher, probably not the best example in society, but she did say that if you want something done, ask a woman. And we've had to do all of it. We've had to juggle everything. And whenever someone asks me that, but you have children, are you able to focus? I said, I am more motivated because I have children. So failing is not an option. It's just, you can't be, I decided to go traveling for a year. You can't do that. You have to win. You have to provide for your family. And you have to be successful and a role model to those children. If I didn't have kids, maybe I'd be doing something completely different. So it's really sad that in many ways women's strengths are changed as looked at as some kind of I don't want to say disability, but disadvantage, and it shouldn't be like this. So moving on. I can see that you mentioned this a little bit already, that one of the elements in Baltic Sandbox is bridging the Eastern Europe to Western Europe. So I'd like to understand a little bit more how you do this and why you understood that it's needed, because definitely when you started, we were still kind of Eastern Bloc, and now Lithuania has taken such a leap. Fintech is booming. You've also actually, I think you've overtaken everyone else in our region in the sense of women in tech, because you have a lot of focus on there. So just a few thoughts and your goals and how that kind of came to be.
Mm-hmm. So initially, when we started building this, there was much more money in the venture fund ecosystem at Western Europe than in Eastern Europe, for sure. So we were trying to bring on the investors, and at the same time, I mean, Baltics is 7 million people, right? It's not a market. It's a good playground for you to start. It's a good sandbox, but you can't win some serious traction in this market. But at the same time, comparing to Western Europe, it's relatively cheap to start here, to have a team here, to test the hypothesis and everything. And given the fact that you have a small market where you can set, but it's European market with the European regulations, and you can set up your team in relatively cheap way, and you can test your product here because you have an English-speaking environment around you, and you have a lot of early adopters, people who are very familiar with tech and who would be very eager to test the new products. You can test it here and you can go further. And it requires, in terms of investment ticket, it requires much less money than to do the same, for example, in Germany or in Sweden. So for us, it looked as the perfect spot. And then this business angel school, we started in 2020 when the COVID hit. A lot of angel investors, and the problem is that despite the fact we have a lot of venture funds here at the market now, we have much less angel investors, especially like in Lithuania and Latvia. Estonia is growing because of all those unicorns and exits from the unicorns, but we are still in a bit top spot like in our country. So COVID hits, all the investments in startups stopped for some point, and we had a lot of angels who were running to us, like from our network, asking, okay, what we should do now? Shall we invest? Shall we not invest? Will the valuations drop? How the market is working? Like, things are crazy, we don't understand. And at some point, when we got a lot of requests like this, we thought like, okay, so probably now it's a good time to set up an educational program for the business angels, where we can not only help the existing business angels figure out what's happening on the market, but also attract some new angels, because crisis is the time of the opportunities. And when it's the financial crisis overall and the stock markets are going down, probably there is another way for people to invest. Probably they would be willing to invest in startups. So we started this business angel school in March. Again, we saw the same problem. So after 4 programs, we figured that we are lucky to have probably 1 female investor in the program, sometimes 2, but not more. And we were like, okay, so what's happening? Probably women are not investing in startups or something else. And we decided to launch this experiment. So we decided to launch Women Investing in Tech, the business angel school for women business angels only. And we had crazy amount of applications from all over Europe. Apparently, those angels were out there waiting for joining this program. And apparently they wanted to have the separate program for themselves. And I can tell you that actually I do understand now that we did it all right, because when it comes to the women investors, they tend to invest more in mixed teams and in the female founders. And what happened at the end of the program, several investors joined their forces, and they invested in several mixed teams or teams founded by the female founders. And it was pretty amazing for us, because first of all, it was quick. And secondly, some of those investors who weren't investing before, it was their first deal, they actually led the deals. So they had this enough of the support of the community, enough of the support of the network, and enough knowledge to start leading the deal.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I have to say, I also took part of that women's business angel school. It was really, really inspiring. And I think back to like when I was at school, we had classes separately, boys and girls. And I always thought, like, why are we segregated like that? It's really stupid. But right now, I would say that in tech, it's kind of needed. And there's an initiative in Estonia that started doing sort of robotics classes, but only for girls. Because they realized that you do a robotics class, 10 boys show up and 2 girls maybe. But there are girls that are interested in robotics, but then they go to the classes and they don't fit in. Because as humans, we always try to, fit in. But if it's all boys, they kind of, stick together, and the girls are standing there feeling awkward. So it's really interesting for me to see that as a grown-up, it still works, because we're not able to, see each other as equals in many roles in society. But I'm sure that thanks to your initiatives, it will definitely start to change. As a woman, as an investor, becomes a normal thing when we see them in society. So that's really powerful. So I guess on the same topic, we went through the numbers a little bit. You mentioned before that there's a lot of data that shows that companies that are founded by women or mixed teams perform better. To me, it makes complete sense, because if you have people that have different backgrounds, they come up with solutions faster. And recently, there's been a lot of things popping up, like they call it the Pinky Gate in Germany, where some young men decided that women need a pink glove whilst they're menstruating, and some investor decided to invest in it. And then you think, okay, they didn't mean anything bad. They just didn't know and didn't bother to ask, is this something that's, viable? Or, so many problems with that. But I completely believe that companies will be more successful if we have a mixed team, because you're selling to everyone essentially if you have some kind of product, and women are half of the population. But looking at the sort of grim numbers, so in the Central and Eastern Europe in 2020, women only raised 1% of the capital. So you already mentioned that it's, these biases that investors think that women have other priorities. But what do you think would be the fastest way to accelerate and change these numbers to, do it a little bit better, at least?
Well, actually, that's about the investor side, right? Because we have like two options basically. We can either educate and try to change the existing investors, the existing venture funds and angels, or we can bring new investors to the markets. We can have more women in the boards. We can have more venture funds founded by women for women. We can have more female angels on the market and so on. Because I believe this is something that creates a change. If we have a good representation of women in the investment world, it will help to invest in startups, in the mixed startups or female-founded startups more, because it's not because it's some sort of sisterhood or something. It's just because women have different optics to this. I can tell you a story when there was the startup founded by the female founders, and what they do, they deliver the personalized skincare based on the subscription model, and they have a lot of big data and they have a lot of engineering under the hood. So basically, they're not a cosmetic startup. They're about computer vision, they're about artificial intelligence, and a lot of tech. But when they come to the male investors, they automatically fit in this pattern: girls doing the cosmetics, and that's it. And they don't see it through, they don't see it further. When they come to the female investors, they don't kind of expect them like, okay, yeah, girls are doing the cosmetics, but this is clear, what else do you have? And then they start talking about tech. And then they start talking about the actual thing that they're building, because they're not a cosmetic company, they're a tech company. But sometimes for investors, it's really complicated to see it, because we're all biased. And so we need to educate and develop the investors community. And I recently had this conversation on Twitter with the female investor who said, like, we don't need to be empowered or something like this. We have enough power. Probably we just need to syndicate and invest in startups and something like this. There are a lot of very powerful women investors out there who don't need to be empowered. But there are the newcomers. It doesn't matter if they're men or women. They need to have more knowledge. They need to have more role models. They need to have more power. And what's happening when you're coming to the markets where 99.9% of the role models are men and you're a woman, right? They're not actually empowering you to be like them, because you are different. So if we contribute to educate and empowering, bringing more people to this market, I will believe it will affect the funding parts, and more female startups are going to get funded. And at the end of the day, the world is going to be a better place. By the way, it's not about it's not a problem with the Central and Eastern Europe. I recently talked to my colleagues in the UK, and the situation is the same. 1%. It's absolutely drastic, and the whole community is like, oh my God, what's happening? And what happened during the coronavirus? It got worse. So even less female founders got the funding, because when you're investing online, you're prone to these biases more, that okay, probably these guys are more capable to deliver something than these girls.
Yeah, that's really, really kind of sad. I think there's like many issues where women are now, we've gone backwards thanks to COVID, because things like kids are home. It's usually the mother who will have to step in and do their homework, teach with them, and all of that. Not always the case, but usually it's the norm. But yeah, I've also there have been a few women that spoke to me, and when I said that, okay, we're raising a fund that will invest in companies that have at least one female founder, because something is really off here. And most women are like, yes, let's do it, let's fix this. But there have been a few, I think one or two, that said that we don't need special treatment. And I agree with that, but our point is that this is not special treatment, this is normal treatment. When an investor asks you at a meeting whether you have children or want to have children, or what does your husband think of it, or whatever, that's not special treatment. That's that shouldn't happen, and men aren't getting asked these questions. So on one hand, I understand how women want to do everything on themselves and prove their worth, but I just see that we've reached a point where we need to take some kind of action to actually, otherwise we've kind of stagnated and plateaued. That's really sad to see.
If we're talking about the customers, the users of the product, women need special treatment. There is this very good example. You probably have read this book, Invisible Women. So if there is an engineering company that is, for example, designing a car or building some algorithms, and if 99% of the engineers in this company are men, they would be creating the product for men. The example being pretty simple, which would be a seatbelt. So for quite a while, a lot of women are dying in the car crashes, and the statistics is horrible because there is up to 30% more possibility for a woman to die in a car crash or be severely injured comparing to the men. Why? Because the seatbelts were designed for men according to the mannequin of a man. And imagine if in this engineering team they would have half women and half men, how they would design the seatbelt, how they would design the car differently. The question about the special treatments, sometimes when something when something is pretty much neglected, you need some special treatment to bring it back to the norm. At some point, it will look like over-treatment. At some point, it will look like there is too much of it. But at the end of the day, it will just come into the balance. I mean, I was like this myself, like 2016 and 17, I was like, what? Women in tech? I don't care. Like, I mean, I am tech. It doesn't matter if I'm a woman or a man. But then I figured, well, actually, yeah, I'm a businesswoman, but I'm a businesswoman for 18 years. And I'm lucky enough to have a certain background, a strong character, and something that actually gave me an opportunity to come where I am. But it's not because, like, it's partially because of who I am, partially because of the coincidence, partially because of the circumstances and everything. And if we would be comparing a typical path of a woman and a typical path of the man, it would be completely different. So by giving the preferential treatments to the women now, by removing some obstacles from their path, we are actually creating in equal possibilities to do this. Because think about the society, right? How society are treating women and how society are treating men. So even your family, even your mother or grandmother, they would be wishing you good. I mean, they're not against you being a businessman, businesswoman, or something. But at the end of the day, they will come up to you and tell you, okay, but when you're going to get married, because you're happy when you're married, when you're going to have kids, because kids will make you happy, and things like this. And probably you shouldn't work too much. We are worried about you. You need to have more life with your kids, with your family. This is the stereotypes that's they won't change over a decade or 2 decades. They still will be there. And the stereotypes, they're actually creating those mental obstacles anyway. Because if everyone is trying kind of to help you, but in the way of a little bit demoralizing you and telling you that your path is probably not right because you would be happier doing other things, This is what I call those obstacles that needs to be removed, and this is why those who are choosing this path, they need to be encouraged.
Absolutely. Yeah, society has a long way to go. It's crazy to think, what was happening even just 100 years ago. So we people are like, oh, women don't need special treatment. I would say maybe, a controversial thought, but women have been oppressed for so long that maybe it's time to play catch up and change that. But moving on. So things like quotas. It's also a rather controversial topic. What are your thoughts on these? So should we have some kind of, hey, we'll put X amount of women on the boards? I know that some countries are already doing it by law, but it also, many people are very against it, saying that, oh, we shouldn't hire people on quotas. It should be done on merit. What are your thoughts on quotas?
The thing is that we are not born with equal opportunities. It just seems so. The family that you were born in, your background actually defines who you're going to be in the future. And there are a lot of researchers that are proving this. Those guys who went to Ivy League colleges because their families could afford it, and their families were the families with the family money, they're actually getting much more opportunities though than those immigrants who just arrived to United States, for example, to start the business or to stop there, right? And it's the same situation here. We are not born equal. We are not brought up in an equal way, and we don't have equal opportunities, which actually means that these quotas for some time might be a good thing, because they offer women an opportunity to be represented, be it a board, be it a tech company, because the situation, for example, with the tech companies is almost the same. When a lot of companies are trying to bring more women programmers or something in the teams, and it changes a lot in terms of companies, like culture, in terms of how the teams are operating, because diversity brings creativity, boosts creativity. But they can do this only if there is some sort of the managing will to do this. If they say, okay, for each 10% of programmers, for each 10 programmers in our company, we need to have one woman. This is when this is going to happen. If for example, there is no such policy, imagine you are a recruiter, right? And you are hiring people and you have a certain picture of your candidate in your mind. It comes down to the biases as well. And so you're looking at this candidate and there is a male candidate and you're pretty sure, okay, this guy is going to work with us from 3 to 5 years. And the development path of this guy is going to be like this or like this. And then you're looking at the female candidate and you're wondering, okay, she's 25 or she's 30 and she's not married and she doesn't have kids. Well, probably in 2 years, she's going to go to maternity leave and we will lose the candidate and we will have to fill up this position again. And it's not in my KPIs. So at the end of the day, I would prefer men because, it's just less problems. So in this case, I think the quotas might do a lot of right thing. It is controversial because I'm not saying that, okay, so if we're choosing the board member, we should choose someone who is completely unqualified because this person is a woman. It's not like this. You should give some space for the qualified woman to step up and to step in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the few conversations I've had about the quotas, people say that, we should hire on merit, but it's not like we're saying like bring in all women tomorrow. And I think it's just not possible that we can't find 10 or 20% of women who are qualified for that. It's in Europe, I believe women are more educated usually versus men. So yeah, it all comes down to the biases, and I guess once we start seeing more women in society, it will start to slowly change, hopefully. Yeah, been a great talk. So I think finally to wrap this up, what would be the advice you would give to women who are either hesitating to start their own business or, change their career or go into tech? Like some words of wisdom and advice.
There is just like, I think there is just one phrase, you can do it. I mean, look at the world around you. There are some women who were able to do it, uh, regardless of their background, regardless of how they were treated, and sometimes regardless of if they had or didn't have any like preferences or something, they were able to do it. It means that you are able to do it as well. And also, statistically, if we are talking about women, they're less, let's say, when it comes to self-representation, they're less showing off than the men because of like different reasons. So don't be afraid to go out there and show yourself to them. I mean, it's not going to be an easy way. It's not going to be like, this smooth silky road for you, but at the end of the day, if you want it, just go and grab it. You can do it.
Absolutely, you can do it. That's brilliant. I think that's all everyone ever needs to hear. That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much for joining the show. It was a real pleasure talking to you and hearing all of your thoughts, and also from what you've done with your work at Baltic Sandbox and the Business Angel School. We can definitely see the results, and we will soon see wider changes in society thanks to that as well, I'm sure. So thank you very much. And
thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, and thanks a lot for doing this podcast, by the way, because what you're doing, you're delivering some sort of experience and knowledge and role models out there to the society, and it contributes a lot to raising awareness of the problem and to bringing more women to the boards, to the venture field and tech field in general.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about sharing the stories of inspiring women and men as well. And we are not invisible. We are in tech. We are investable. So, just hopefully soon these biases will start to go. But thank you, everyone. And we will see you on the next show next week. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and see you very soon. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.